On today's show, the Cleveland Cavaliers took Jaylon Tyson in the first round of the NBA draft yesterday. He's exactly the type of pick they should have made, and I'll tell you why.
You are Locked On Cavs, your daily Cleveland Cavaliers podcast.
Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thank you for making Locked On Cavs your first listen every day. You can find the show wherever you get your podcasts, Apple, Spotify, everywhere else. Be sure to subscribe to the podcast. Give us a 5-star review if you want to help us grow the show. That's the best thing you can do. Also, check out the Locked On Cavs YouTube channel. If you're watching this video right now, give us a thumbs up. Make sure you hit that subscribe button and click the notification bell as well. That is how you can help us to grow the show. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's show is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms do apply. Hello again, everybody. I'm Danny Cunningham. You might know me from my time covering the Cleveland Cavaliers here at Locked On Cavs, 92.3 The Fan, Cleveland Magazine, or some other places throughout the years. The Cavs had the first round of the NBA draft come and go. They stuck at number 20 overall tonight, made a selection. They ended up taking Jaylon Tyson, a forward guard type player, a swing type player out of Cal. There's a lot to dive into here. I want to talk about his fit on the Cavaliers, his journey to the NBA draft. I also, later on in the show, I do want to talk about a potential trade that I think the Cavs should be interested. Maybe it is something that can happen today. Maybe it's not, but it's something to keep an eye on for the Cavaliers as we move along through this offseason. It has to do with the Brooklyn Nets. We will definitely dive into that. But Jaylon Tyson, out of Cal, number 20 overall selection for the Cavaliers. He played a lot of guard in college. I think that his role in college is very different than what it's going to be in Cleveland. But let's talk about the player first. Some of the things that I think he does well, some of the things that I think do need to be improved upon, and some of the things that we heard from Cavs general manager Mike Gansey, who met with us media after the selection as far as what the Cavs think Tyson does well or Tyson does need to improve. So his role at Cal, he was on a team coached by former NBA player and coach Mark Matson that wasn't very good. He was on a roster that didn't have a ton of talent. He was the guy there. He was tasked with doing quite a bit. If you go online, watch his YouTube highlights, check out what his college career was like while he was at Cal. And of course, he was at a couple of other schools before Cal. He played at Texas to start his career. He played at Texas Tech, and then he transferred to Cal. That's not something that the Cavs seem too worried about. That's not something I would necessarily read into as some sort of red flag here. Every situation is different, especially in today's era. 5-10 years ago, a guy playing at 3 schools was certainly a red flag. I don't think that's true anymore. I really don't. I don't think that's something, if you're looking up and down Jaylon Tyson's qualifications to be in the NBA, his resume, so to speak, and you see that he played at 3 different schools, that might raise your eyebrow. I don't think it's a big deal. I really don't. But while he was at Cal, he wasn't on a very good team. He was very clearly the best player on that team, and he was in a role where he had to do just about everything. He was the main creator for himself and for other players. He was essentially playing point guard, a little bit of an oversized point guard standing at 6'7" with shoes on. I know I tweeted that out earlier and people are, oh, he's 6'5", he's 6'5.5". I don't care about the barefoot measurement. He's not going to ever play a second of the Cavs without shoes on. That's not how the NBA works. I care what you look like with shoes on. And also, I do think height is a little bit overrated. I care more about wingspan. He does have a positive wingspan. If he's listed at 6'7", if he's listed at 6'5", I don't care about that as much. He's got a 6'8" wingspan. That is what intrigues me because the length matters. That's the thing that matters more so than the height to me, especially when you are a player out on the wing, which I think Jaylon Tyson is going to eventually. I don't know that it's going to be day one, but eventually I think he'll be a contributor for the Cavs on the wing. So the things that he did well at Cal, I thought he did a good job of getting others involved. Now, he wasn't the best caretaker of the basketball. No one's going to confuse him for an elite level point guard. That's not what he is, but that's what he was asked to do at Cal. But I do think he's able to make some really nice passes. I think he's got solid court vision. No one's going to confuse him with Chris Paul in that aspect. But I think in a role as a secondary creator in the NBA, he can be pretty successful in getting others involved. I do think he's a pretty athletic kid. I think he's got a decent amount of bounce in him. He's not an elite level athlete, but I think he's a pretty good level athlete. He was able to create his own shots. And one of the knocks on Tyson is that his shot diet while at Cal wasn't the best. You go and you watch his highlight tape, there's a lot of mid-range shots there, and he's making them, and of course he is, because it's a highlight tape. The highlight tape isn't going to show the 19-footers that he pulled up off the dribble to take and clanked off the rim. It's not what highlight tapes do. But I think that shot diet that he took at Cal is obviously a con to his game. It's a minus, right? But I don't know that that's something that you have to worry about, because when he's in a different role in the NBA, that shot diet's going to be so different. It's going to be so different. So I understand trepidations when you look at a guy that took so many mid-rangers, even if he shot, I believe it was right around 45, in between 45, 46% from the floor while at Cal this past year. That's great. But the shot diet is going to look, I think, so much different in the NBA. The other thing, he was taking a lot of shots off of the dribble, and that is something that's the product of being a point guard and playing in a system, playing on a team that there's not really another very good primary creator. If he played alongside just not even a great point guard, just an average point guard, someone that could help to shoulder the load that he had to take on while at Cal, I think he's someone that looks a little bit different because he's taking more catch and shoot opportunities. Now, his jumper, I don't think it's flawless for him. No one's going to confuse him with Ray Allen with his jump shot or Klay Thompson, guys that just have perfect form. But the ball goes in the basket enough to make me think that it's okay. It's okay that it's not the prettiest looking jump shot in the world. It doesn't need to be, but I do think that his shot, and just in the limited amounts of him that I've watched, I think his shot looks cleaner when he's in catch and shoot opportunities than when he's in the pull-up dribble opportunities, when he's having to create the shot for himself and finish the shot from the outside. He's able to get to the rim in college, in the Pac-12. I don't know how much that's going to translate. Again, I think he's a good athlete, not a great athlete, but he's able to get to the rim. He's got a decent floater package. I also think part of the optimism I think people should have for his transition to the NBA is there are some clips of him cutting off the basketball, and that is an area that the Cavs mentioned he needs to improve upon as he gets to the NBA, is playing away from the ball, and we'll dive into that coming up in segment number 2. But he does show some glimpses of cutting off the ball, of being a guy that can, when applicable, get to the basket when others can't create for him. I don't think there were a ton of those opportunities in Cal. I think that's something that there will certainly be more of when he's in the NBA with the Cavs, if he's able to find his way onto the floor. But that is something certainly to keep an eye on, because that is part of it. He is a good athlete, like I've been saying. I think the shot will improve a little bit because the diet will improve. So there are certain things that you can take away from his time in college, but there are other things that you can watch, that you can look at, but it's also something that, okay, he's just going to be in such a different role in the NBA with the Cavaliers, specifically with the roster that he's going to be part of this season. He's going to be in such a different role that some of that stuff just doesn't matter. And it's still okay to use those data points and to look into that stuff as, okay, this is who this player is, but you also have to understand that this is something that's going to change. This is something that's not going to be the exact same when he gets to the NBA. I do want to talk about his fit with the Cavs. I do think there's a place for him on this roster. I do think potentially there's a place for him in the rotation. I don't know if it's going to be right away. Obviously, the roster situation very fluid as we've not hit free agency. We are starting to see some trades in the NBA, and we will talk about some of the trades in the NBA a little bit as well on today's show. But I want to talk about his fit specifically with the Cavs, what needs to improve, and how being in a much different role in Cleveland than he was at Cal could help to speed up some of those improvements right here next on Locked On Cavs. Today's show is brought to you by Game Time. Game Time is an authorized ticket marketplace of Major League Baseball, and that makes getting tickets faster and easier. Fast, easy, two things I like, two things you should like when you're looking for tickets, specifically as the summer is here and we are going to Major League Baseball games, because there are a few better things to enjoy during the summer than being able to go to a baseball game, enjoy a drink, be in great weather outdoors, enjoy a baseball game. It's awesome. And prices on the Game Time app actually go down the closer to first pitch that you get. So maybe you last minute decide, hey, it's a beautiful night in Cleveland. The Guardians are playing great. I want to go watch them. Hit the Game Time app. They've got killer last minute deals, all in prices, views from your seat, and the lowest price guarantee. Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying MLB tickets. So I actually went to a Guardians game last week. Checked out Guardians Mariners last Thursday. Guardians won. I got great seats, awesome experience, and I got there by using Game Time. When I woke up and decided, hey, you know what? I want to go check out the Guardians today. They've been playing awesome. It's the last game before they go on a road trip. I got to check them out. What do? Pull up my phone, open up Game Time, find the seats for me. Soon enough, I find myself inside Progressive Field at the baseball game, and I got it for the best price possible. So take the guesswork out of buying MLB tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNBA. That's LOCKEDON NBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms do apply. Again, create an account, redeem code LOCKEDON NBA for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. So one of the interesting things that comes with every time someone is drafted is figuring out where do they fit in on the NBA team that just picked them. We talked about this last year with Emoni Bates when the Cavs selected him 48th overall, and it turned out that fit for the most part was with the Canton Charge as a developmental prospect. And maybe Jaylon Tyson is someone that is going to have to spend some time in the G League with the Cleveland Charge. That's absolutely a possibility. But I do think that he has a lot of tools, and I think he's a guy with a relatively high floor. And there are some things that need improvement, but the fact that his role is going to change so much in Cleveland is something that I do think should give hope that he can make those improvements just by being in a better situation. It's not that Cal is some bad situation, and I don't want to talk poorly about that because I do think Mark Madsen's doing a good job with what he's got out there, and I think he did a good job with Jaylon Tyson in particular, but he was asked to carry so much to where, for the most part, he was the team's primary point guard, and he's not a point guard. That's not who he is. That's not who he's going to be in the NBA. I think that he can, in the NBA, be someone that is a 3-and-D guy that also shows some ability to create for others. And I think that playing point guard in college actually helped him here, but I think it'll help him more develop when he doesn't have to do that anymore. When he can worry about making super easy reads after having someone else get the ball to him instead of having to be the one that initiates everything. I also think that, and I talked about his shot diet in segment number 1, I think that's going to drastically change in the NBA. I don't think he's going to be someone that's taking, X number of mid-range shots per game. I think that for the most part is going to be pretty eradicated. I think he's going to be someone that the vast majority of his shots are going to be behind the three-point arc or at the basket or in transition. Think basically what Isaac Okoro's shot diet is, where you see him take corner threes. You started to see him take more above the break 3-pointers last year. I think he's a solid guy at getting to the basket. He's great in transition offensively. I think that's the sort of shot diet that Jaylon Tyson has or will have in the NBA, but I do think he's certainly a better playmaker for others than Isaac Okoro is. Like, I don't think that these are two very comparable players outside of what the ideal shot diet should be. I asked Cavs general manager Mike Gansey really how they view a type of player where when you draft Jaylon Tyson and you're scouting him and you're watching him play in college, knowing that he's going to be such a different player in the NBA, and Gansey had a press conference availability for everybody, and this was the thing I was most interested to ask. And he essentially said that, we do believe that guys, when they have a little bit less on them in the NBA, it's easier for them to adapt. And there are things that are going to be difficult adjustments because Tyson's going to go from being someone that was so ball dominant to playing off the ball. And that is a big adjustment to your game. A lot of guys struggle to do that. And that might be something that is a big key, just how well Tyson can develop, is how does he adjust to playing without the basketball in his hands 85% of the time on offense? Because that opportunity is just not going to be there with the Cavs. How does he go from somebody that has taken so many pull-up threes or so many threes off of screens, creating them for himself, to being someone that can be sometimes a standstill 3-point shooter, sometimes a 3-point shooter that is running off of screens, sometimes someone that is crashing the glass after other guys are shooting from the outside? How do you adjust to not being a ball dominant player? We don't know what that answer is going to look like, but I think that if Jaylon takes advantage of this situation fully and really immerses himself and dedicates himself, which the Cavs and Gansey really talked about him having such a great attitude, and talked about how during his pre-draft workout with the Cavs, he was dealing with some back issues, but wanted to be out there so bad, fought through it, and really put forth a really impressive performance that helped to shoot him up their draft board and put him in the position as someone they were very interested in at number 20 overall. With that stuff all being true, it makes you think that, okay, this transition is one that he can make. But it's one that it's silly to expect to happen overnight. I wouldn't expect Jaylon Tyson to be a guy that comes in right away and just is a stud 3-and-D player. That really doesn't happen all that often at the number 20 spot. It really doesn't happen all that often in the NBA draft overall. Rookies, for the most part, don't impact winning in a big way. I wouldn't expect that in year one, but I do think that Tyson is someone that has quite a bit of potential. Gansey mentioned him as someone that is a good shooter, not a great shooter, which I think is important because I do think he can get to that point, but right now he's a good shooter. There can be development there. You can improve as a shooter, but the tools are there considering what his shot diet was. He shot 36% from three this past year out at Cal. A lot of those threes are threes he's not going to be taking in the NBA. So I do wonder, okay, well, what's he going to shoot on looks that I think for the most part should be a little bit more open? I know defenses are so much better in the league than they are in college, but he should have a little bit more airspace. He should be a little bit more settled in taking those because they should be in catch and shoot opportunities. So that's certainly something to watch. Gansey also mentioned that he is someone that they believe will be an average to above average defender that can defend. Essentially, he thinks right now, shooting guards, small forwards, and at some point in the future, select power forwards as well. So he is someone that brings some positional versatility to the defensive end of the floor. That is something that absolutely will be a good thing for the Cavs. You can never have too much positional versatility defensively, and that is something that the Cavs valued here as they made this selection. So that those are the things to keep in mind. There will need to be adjustments for Jaylon Tyson. There absolutely will need to be those things, but he is someone that the Cavs think is a really good fit, but they also thought, according to Mike Gansey, was the best player on the board. And if you can combine those things, you have to feel good about this selection. I think there's going to be a lot of development time. He's not someone that I would expect to be a contributor this year, at least not early in the year, maybe later on in the year as things go on. And of course, we have to see what the roster is going to look like overall. We don't have that answer right now, but he's someone that the outline of a solid role player in the NBA, I think is there with Jaylon Tyson. I think it's there. I'm not just saying that because the Cavs drafted him. I think when you look at everything he had to do and being such a high usage player and having to drag a Cal team that wasn't very good, when you look at all that and you start to question, okay, what does he look like if he has to do less and he's surrounded by better players? I think that with his skill set leads me to believe that there's a bright future for him just in terms of being a good role player in the NBA. I want to talk about a trade or a guy in particular that I think the Cavs should be interested in. I also want to talk about whether or not the Cavs should look to find a way back into the second round in today's second round. It's the first time the NBA draft has been split into 2 days when it's been a 2-round draft. So we'll talk about how aggressive the Cavs should be and also a trade that a guy they should be looking into next right here on Locked On Cavs. So Mike Gansey was asked, I believe Chris Fedor of Cleveland.com was the one who asked him this near the end of his press conference on Wednesday night about how aggressive the team plans to be in terms of maybe buying a second round pick to get back in the draft, maybe making a trade with a team to get back in the draft and select another player. He said that they're going to be very aggressive. I think that's the right way to go about this. If you are going to go about this, it's find a good solid player that you think you can develop using a two-way contract. Think of a player like Amani Bates that they took at number 48 overall last year. I don't know who that player is going to be, but if they find somebody like that in the draft on Thursday in round 2, I think it makes sense, whether it's buying a pick, trading a future second round pick for a second round pick in today's second round. I just said second round a lot there. That was weird. I think it makes sense. I think it could be a wise thing, but it also isn't going to be something that makes or breaks this draft. Like, I'm not going to view the 2024 NBA draft as a success or failure for the Cavs based on whether or not they buy a second round pick. Like, that's just not something that is that big of a deal, but there certainly can be some upside there. The trade I want to talk about, obviously, on yesterday's podcast, if you are an everyday listener, one, I appreciate you. Thank you. Thank you for making Locked On Cavs your first listen every day. But I had on Adam Armbrecht of Locked On Nets. We talked a lot about Kenny Atkinson. We also talked about some trades. We recorded that episode Tuesday afternoon. Obviously, at this point, we all know what happened Tuesday night in terms of the big trades that the Brooklyn Nets made, where they're now, I think they have signaled to the league, hey, you want someone on the roster, they're available. Everyone in Brooklyn is available. Mikal Bridges now with the Knicks. They made a big draft pick trade with the Houston Rockets that is absolutely fascinating to dig into. But I think that the Cavs should be a team that is very involved trying to get Cam Johnson. I think he'd be a perfect fit in Cleveland. I think the Cavs have what it could take to get it done. And I think that they should be a team that is pestering Brooklyn to try and get a trade done there. I'm not positive what that trade's going to look like. I would bet maybe someone like Karis LeVert is part of that deal. Maybe some draft compensation in the future. Maybe it is even someone like, if the Nets want Jaylon Tyson bad enough, even though he's already been picked by the Cavs, I don't think that that's something that should be off the table. I think Cam Johnson would be a perfect fit in Cleveland. It's very clear he is available. He is absolutely a guy that is available to be traded. The Nets have signaled they want to rebuild. They want to turn over a new page in that organization. They want to do it the right way. The Cavs should be a team that takes advantage. I also wonder, Dorian Finney-Smith, can he be available maybe at a little bit of a lower price than Cam Johnson? I like Cam Johnson as a player a little bit more, but DFS, absolutely a guy that could make sense in Cleveland. Like I said, the Cavs should be calling the Brooklyn Nets, trying to make a deal, trying to upgrade the roster. I think that this is something that absolutely makes the Cavs a better team, and it's a way to take advantage of a team that has decided, you know what, we're no longer interested in competing. Every time that happens, because in the NBA, it is so difficult to make a trade with a team that believes they are winning when you are another team that believes you're set up to win. It's hard for instance, the Cavs and Knicks to make a trade. That's a really difficult thing to do. It's a very, very difficult thing to do. But when the Nets are rebuilding the way they've signaled to the NBA they are, it becomes much easier for them to make a trade between the two franchises. I think it's a good fit. I think it's something the Cavs should absolutely be looking into. 100%, that is something they should be looking into. I will be back tomorrow talking more about the NBA draft as a whole. Certainly we'll be talking about Jaylon Tyson, how things look. I will have another Locked On Cavs for you tomorrow. Be sure to find it. Make it your first listen. Make Locked On Cavs your first listen every day. If you're already doing that, I appreciate you a ton. I need you to know that. If you are not subscribed yet, Apple, Spotify, everywhere else you get your podcast, click that subscribe button. Make sure that this pops up in your feed each and every morning. You're not going to want to miss this, especially as free agency arrives. Could be getting some big news on Donovan Mitchell any day now at this point. Also, if you're not subscribed on YouTube, subscribe on YouTube. We've got a ton of great stuff. Click the notification bell. If you haven't liked this video, like this video. That is how you guys are helping me to grow this channel. It has been a great first month for me here on Locked On Cavs. I cannot wait to see where this continues to go. Again, thank you for making Locked On Cavs your first listen every day. I will be back again tomorrow with more Cavaliers talk for you all.